According to Congress, Congress is down.
I didn't see Megan. Yeah, what's going on?
Okay, at 1:30, 6 o'clock, I'd like us to get a meeting started. Time to see, get comfortable, buckle up. Call our meeting of budget finance, on the budget hearing to order. Tonight, things we're looking to try to get done and accomplish. First, we'll start with election commission, then we'll go into the highway 131 fund, and end up with the school's general purpose fund and 141 fund. I think that will get us through everything that we had to do. So, start with election commission. That's in the 101 fund. That'll be on page 8 of your budget. And Mr. Paxton's here with us tonight. Appreciate him being here to be able to defend this budget and answering questions that we might have. Looking through it, if you'll just go to the bottom line, it's substantially less than the amended budget from last year, simply because there was 3 elections in last year, I believe it was. And there will not be any elections during this budget, but there will be some elections that the preparation for them will come out this budget. So it's not like there's no money needed to get ready for the August election next year. So Mr. Paxton, you would come on up so you can answer questions. I think the only thing that probably needs explanation, or the thing that will need the most explanation, is probably the increase on your part-time office help.
Certainly. First of all, I appreciate you letting us move to Thursday. Of course, we had our election commission meeting on Tuesday, so that's why we weren't able to come when you originally had us scheduled. What we're looking to do, and what the election commission would like to do, is to add a part-time deputy. We've never had a deputy in the office. Right now, we have 5,835 registered voters in Trousdale County. That's the most that we've ever had. And what we're starting to find is that there's times when a single person has to be out of the office, either for educational things, for training things, simply to go over and take care of some election business, and there's nobody in the office. There's nobody that can man the office. So what we're looking at is putting someone it's 20 hours, so it's not a full-time person, there would be no benefits or anything attached to it. And the other reason is, and I hate to say this, but the election administrator is getting a tad bit long in the tooth. What's that mean? So there's no one right now that has a full working knowledge of what the office does every day. I was diagnosed back February actually. I got the COVID, and so I was out of the office for 10 days, and there was nobody that could man it. So what we're looking at doing is getting someone that's available, train them up. We'll also use them for early voting, for election day, all those type of things that we normally use a temporary deputy for, but also allow them to understand the everyday workings of the office, how to do process, voter registrations, and all that. So that's what the thought is. We put it in this year's budget, even though it's an off year, because it is an off year. So we can spend time getting them up to speed instead of, I know what happened to me was, I started in January of 2010, and I was doing an election in August of 2010. And I'll be honest with you, if it hadn't been for Macon County, we would have been hurt, because I got an opportunity. I ran up there while they were doing the primary and learned an awful lot about just how to do things. So that's why we put that in there this year. If it wasn't in there, we would have about a $20,000 drop, which is what we normally see. As Mr. Jewell said, there are some of the costs involved with the August election in here. We try to front load some of those to try to keep the budget from tipping back and forth too much. But there's things like the legal notices, the printing of the ballots, and all those things that can be done ahead of time, that they are in this budget. So I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody may have.
Commissioners, any questions? Mr. Ford?
10 days you was out, what happened that was a problem?
Well, it was just, there was nobody to answer phones, there was nobody to update the state. One of the things that happens every day is that we report to the state new voters, and they report to me people who have registered somewhere else. So you want to keep those records positive. You want to keep those records up to date, and that wasn't able to happen. In this case, nothing happened from the standpoint of there wasn't a meeting that we missed or something like that, but it was possible. And we weren't the only office that went through that, but we were the only one that's a one-person office. We're the only one-person office left in the state where you don't have at least a part-time that can cover that. So that was the concern, Mr. Ford. And if somebody came in and had a question, they would just have to wait during that period.
Any other questions? This is, last year's budget, there was $6,000 in that line item. This is asking for $11,664. So it's an increase of about $5,000 because those people were employed during those 3 election cycles. There's always been some cost involved with, deputies or part-time help. Some of that will be rolled into this amount, but I can understand their reasoning when you're relying on one person. If they get sick, God forbid they die, it's just continuity of operation. I mean, we're dealing with that right now with the housing authority, with the director that's retiring and no one trained to take their position. So, seems like a prudent request in my mind. Anybody have any issues with it, now's the time to speak up.
get a posted position, or he's already got somebody in mind?
You're gonna post this and take applications, or do you already have someone in mind for this
No,
position?
we don't have anyone in mind yet, so we will post it, probably early this week, yes.
Did you say they're gonna be there like 20 hours a week, so what you
That's what we're
saying?
looking at, yes. Keeps them way below the threshold for full-time. So if we needed them for 22 or something, we would be fine. We would not get close to that threshold.
Would that be 4 hours a day, or how would you do it?
We would work with whomever we hire to figure that out. I hadn't planned on doing 4 hours a day. We probably plan on doing a couple full days. Because when we, and it'll also be based on if we have to go to training, then we'll bring them in during those days and that type of thing. So we'll try to be a little flexible there.
So you think it would be up to 20, it wouldn't necessarily always be 20?
That's correct.
And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm just trying to understand.
Yes, sir.
So I understand you now, what you're doing, you're bringing somebody in to train them in case something happens to you, is that what you're saying?
Yes. That's something that in the military we learned early on. You train and release. You always have somebody that can step in to take up over for you. You never know what may happen.
Like I say, we've had these part-time people, that have been in that office, they're just not there every week. They've just been basically during early voting and getting ready for elections during the election cycle. Some years, he would have a part-time person almost, I'd say, half the year. And he was just taking off that position and kind of rolling it into a permanent part-time position, as I understand it.
And we will use those people during early voting. So one of those temporaries would probably be knocked off by using this person.
Mr. Buckner.
What trouble do you have getting deputies during the election cycle?
It can be troublesome sometimes. So
Whenever cause or really cause you a problem?
it has, yes, sir. Yeah, we had to, what we found is we get real close to that 30 hours sometimes. So by having this person there, that will help with that issue. Because they'll be expected to work for early voting. And to be totally transparent, Buckmaster's wife has helped us several times as a deputy. So he's aware of what it takes.
That's part of why I know we were at trouble, because she was with it, and that's what we were.
Right.
How long have you been there, Mr. Paxson?
Sorry.
How long have you been there?
I started in 2010. So we're in 11 years right now.
How many times have you been out like that, like you was talking about?
Well, up until last year, we'd be gone for a week to attend the TACIO seminar, and we would be gone 2 days in the fall and the winter to attend the mid-Tennessee TACIO, and then if there was any other reasons to be out, to attend a hearing someplace. Also, if I just need a vacation day or two, or if I get sick. So I'm entitled to, I'm 15 now, 15 days vacation.
This is from last year's budget request, but 18,000, the town right? Less. That's
18,341.
18,341 less than was budgeted last year. Any other questions? What's the will of the body? Everybody good with it?
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
Next year will be election year, so we're doing this 11,000 for part-time. We'd have to be putting another approximately 7,000 back in for the other help.
No, that's what he explained.
Yeah, but
They
that's-
would cover one of those people, so it would be roughly half that amount. And that was for 3 election cycles next year. There won't be any, the year after next will be an August and November election next year, next calendar year, but not next budget year. So you would anticipate probably $4,000 for the additional part-time person. Okay, what's the will of the body? Everybody okay with it?
I have a hard time saying yes to this because I don't really think it's needed. I think we're more than $5,000. I just gotta be honest about it. I don't feel good about it. I mean, he says he wants somebody to train in case he's not there. My gosh, we're gonna train somebody for the mayor's job in case he ain't here? Don't make sense to me.
I get you.
And I'm not trying to be ugly about it.
I understand. And I mean, that's the question. This is new. We've never done this before. It's a new request. It's simply a request. It's not a demand, I don't think. I think it. Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to jump in on or add to this discussion?
Well, I can sympathize on not having the backup, because we had an issue with one of my staff that somebody in her household tested positive, and the only reason we didn't lose her is we let her come in at night and do it. Otherwise, she would have had to been out, and then nobody's payroll no payroll didn't get done, the checks didn't get cashed, or anything written, or anything like that, so we let her come in at night. So I do understand the issues there with not having the help, just based on what I saw for the last year or so, and we still have that issue in my office. We don't have redundancy in my office. If we have, Nikki goes out, or Renee goes out, or something like that, we don't have anybody process fuel billing, we don't have anybody process accounts payable, we don't have anybody process payroll, so we've got an issue there we're gonna have to address pretty soon.
I think this is one of those things that we've had discussions in times past. It's not a have to, it's a want to. We have to decide whether it's a need to. And I don't know how else to put that. I mean, what the will of the body is.
Move to approve this request.
I do have a motion to approve it. Second by Mr. Walsh. Motion and a second to approve this request. All in favor, just, let's do a show of hands, it's easier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Any against? 1, 7 to 1, it does pass. Thank you, Mr. Pat. All right, let's move into the highway fund. I see that Mr. Scruggs is here and Kevin's here. And, yes, ladies here. Did everybody get this? It was up on the front table. Anybody not get it? Oh, I should have pointed that out again. That's right there. Should be 2 sheets. 131 highway. Bill, are you gonna present this, or Peggy, or the mayor, or me, or who? Mayor, I think you could probably explain the differences better than I can,
Well, I just looked at it a little bit earlier today, so I'm kind of just going off notes. Trying to compare it on the different documents. The current property tax, what they proposed is an increase of $17,659 over last budget year. Most everything else in this county property tax section is remaining the same, so they're proposing an increase from the, well, the budget in the current fiscal year at $17,659. The recurring items, forgive me, like I said, I'm flipping back and forth between two different documents. That's staying the same. Non-recurring, no items, it's hard to forecast the sale of equipment, sell of property or damages, so they don't have anything on that, but they do estimate bringing in the current fiscal year $4,375. Again, that's hard to forecast because there's different unknowables, or I'll go into that one. Other local revenue, there is no other local revenue, so all that combined of the estimated local revenue increase of $17,659 over the current fiscal year. Gasoline and motor fuel tax, they're proposing that to stay essentially the same as what was budgeted in the current fiscal year. For this section, there is no change from the current fiscal year. No items on the federal government side as far as revenues coming in there. Then flip over to the next page, it'll be page 2, other government assistance groups. Again, no forecasted revenue there. Other sources, insurance recovery, again, that's an unknowable, that's just damage in the collection of insurance. So that's unknowable, there's no revenue sign there. Total estimated revenues, again, it's the $17,659 increase over the current fiscal year. Now currently projecting an increase over what was originally budgeted for the current fiscal year of $23,861. So that's how much over the current revenues for this fiscal year they expect to collect. We do see an increase what they're proposing over the current fiscal year. Expenditures, highway administration, there are numerous line items that there's going to be an increase here. And overall, in this one is an increase of $25,487. You want me to go through this line over some of the increases, or you just want to look through and ask questions based on what you see?
was there any of them that was significantly more than?
The biggest increase is $1,870. Excuse me. There's $18,212 on clerical personnel over the current fiscal year.
Who is the clerical personnel?
Did you hear the question, Mr. Scruggs?
There was a guard,
He said, "Who's the clerical personnel?"
was Daddy Shaw, but he had to, quit because, retire again because he worked all his time, so. Daddy Shaw, would work 20 hours a week. At the peak.
This increase is for full-time.
Miss Peggy get ready to retire, so Miss Peggy gets to go home, so we go after retire.
So
Start training somebody for her spot, so.
okay.
Not such a big increase just to train someone.
You can walk in there and start running that place, you get the certified fire marshal officer.
I understand that, but you were paying 10,000, you jumping 29,000.
She gonna, it's gonna be hard, gonna be full-time training. Ain't no way under the sun, you put some more 20 hours a week, and have to train him, and now he gets ready to go home, so.
When's that gonna be?
Next year.
Ms. Taylor, do you have a firm date on when you're looking to retire?
I am hoping to go home December 31st of
Okay,
I would like to have somebody that I can get trained, because there's a lot of stuff that you only do once a year. And I would like to be able to be there and help them with that. And eventually, I would like to come back and work 2 days a week, but,
What
I've
happens
been
to,
in that office 22 years, and I've never had any help until the last 2 to 3 years, and 16 hours a week.
what happens to her salary when she retires?
well, she retires in the next fiscal year, it'll be accounted for in the 2023 fiscal year, and it'll be up to whatever they propose at that time.
Where's it going?
When this
So it's in the
budget's not
assistant
gonna be,
103.
it would be the next
And I guess, question here just for myself and knowledge here, what about the maintenance of effort part of that? Would that not have to stay, even if that position goes off? I know, I
Well,
was
the maintenance effort on the revenue side, not the expenditure side.
just
We've
on the
seen an
revenue side.
increase on the revenue side, so we met a maintenance of effort. At least I'm pretty sure on that, Ms. Taylor, didn't correct me if I'm wrong, maintenance of effort is already accounted for, and this met in the revenue side,
On
correct?
the revenue side,
That's what we're required to give them a certain level of revenue. I think it's an average over the last 5 years.
But if it's not, that money would go back towards it in the future.
Well, if
the
it's
revenue
not,
side
we would
wasn't-
have to increase it. If we don't meet the maintenance of effort, we're required under state law to increase our revenue going into that, but we've met that. The expenditure side, there is no maintenance of effort on the expenditure, it's just on the revenue side.
And then $200,000.
As far as the maintenance of effort, no, it should be higher than that, 200,000. So right now, we've got revenues, let's see here. Local revenue, we got 113,596, so that should be above the 5-year average. And that's just local revenue, that's property tax, clerk and masters, it's everything above, 44,990 on first page. Everything below that where it says state of Tennessee and federal government, that does not count towards our maintenance of effort. So it's actually less than the 200,000. I'm sorry, I was confused on something else on maintenance of effort. There's several.
Our part is what is subject to maintenance, not the state.
We are getting $200,000 a year, right?
Not in this budget.
Well, in this one is proposed, and again, this has some other items. In this one is proposed 113,596, as far as what you can tie down specifically to tax, which would be from 4110, which would be current property tax, down to 4270 business tax. The proposed revenue is 112,596, which is an increase year over year of $17,659, but that's all tied to what we're seeing, just natural growth and property tax, the penny value changing. What we're seeing as far as new properties coming on. So, I mean, it's going to increase as far as the property tax revenue, so we've met our maintenance of efforts requirement, in fact, we probably a little bit over.
a little bit.
Basically, the money that we're putting into the highway department is in your first section of the revenue. That totals out to 112,596. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's what's subject to maintenance of effort. All the rest of their funding comes from the state, in either in public works grants or gasoline tax, things of that nature. So their budget, no matter how he decides who to hire, when, in what way, as far as our part of their budget is remaining the same. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, it's increase, actually, there's a proposed increase of 17,569. Again, that's just natural growth. So we were above what our maintenance of effort requirement.
Mr. Chairman,
Page 1, everything, it says under the between county property tax and where it says total taxes, so that first section should be started 40110 through 4022.
And that is showing 112,596, and it's showing actual year ago, 112,640, or 102,561 estimated for this year.
What proposed for last year, what we've actually passed in the budget was 94,937, so it's increasing from 94,937 to 112,596.
Okay.
That's a growth of $17,659.
Okay, that's where I'm off.
And this middle column is what they're estimating that they're gonna collect this year, and that's $102,561, so they're estimating to collect $10,420 more than what we had in the
More than
budget.
what we had in the budget, just for.
I thought the 100,000 that we initially gave him was for asphalt. Ain't that what it was for?
That's in the urban services, that's the urban
He's
services.
out like the property tax.
Yeah, we gave you 100,000, but I thought,
The 108, then it went down to safety aid, so. Carl took last year, he took 30,000 away from what we didn't get, so. The only reason we had to stop there is because of the 5-year average. Took a little lower than the 5-year average, so.
We did that in the 111 urban services budget to have pay for the paving of the streets within the city was why that was put in there. And I think that's still in the one, that's not still in the 111.
Yes, it is.
We've already looked at that and approved that. This is what's coming out of your 131 highway fund, basically out of your property tax, their percentage of the penny, if you want to put it that way. And, that's where we're at.
Mike, what was the budgeted amount of the, if you turn over page 3, what was that budgeted amount last year? We don't have budgeted amount on here.
Which specific
Total.
section?
Total?
Well, the total's not until, you're talking about the total for expenditures. that should be
Total on page 3. What was that total, budgeted amount last year?
Well, there's total administration, total highway bridge maintenance, which one you specifically talking about, the actual overall expenditure totals on page 5.
So, on page 3, if we're looking at the same page 3, all I'm asking for is, do we have a total? All we see is actual, estimated, and budgeted. So I'm in the column where we're adding the position. Are you with me? Page 3.
Well, the added positions on page 2.
I don't mind. Back page.
Oh, I've got a different one than you do.
Okay, that makes more sense.
You got the same thing in there.
Well, I don't
He's
think.
counting 1, and the back page is 2, he's counting 1, 2. and then 2.
No, it says number 2 on the bottom of it. 3.
There's my page 3.
Oh, see, different amount. That's why we're looking at different places.
You're asking for what the proposed total is, or
What was the budgeted amount for the 2021 year?
193,751.
193,751 was an estimate, we don't know what it'll be.
196,265. That was the budgeted amount for highway administration, 6,100 category, was 196,265. The difference, the biggest difference is taking that 10,000, what was in clerical personnel, what was in last year's budget was 10,521. That is increasing to 29,120. That's the big increase in that category. There's some other minor ones,
That's most of it though.
but that's the big line share of it.
So that's just taking a part-time to a full-time. Is that what that's pretty much doing?
Basically.
Well, the part-time, gone, and, we're gonna try to hire somebody to start training and get the spots, we full time, yeah. You gotta go, whoever has to go be a certified financial officer, go through it, will do all that training.
I guess the one thing about it, is this coming out of county money or state money?
State,
Hey,
We ain't got nothing to say about it no way.
that was the point I was making, the request coming out of county funds was basically the
once
same.
county gives, we get to do a little bit more paving with all that work. I put all that money in, give us a little bit more paving with it.
First, I mean, you're looking at the proposed total budget, and make sure I get the right one here. As far as revenues, total revenues they're looking at is $1,852,191, that's what they're proposing. And the county's share of that is $113,596, the rest of the state putting in $1,738,595.
Need a motion to approve.
A motion approved.
I'll
by
second.
Mr. Jolly and a second by Mr. Walsh. Any other discussion? All in favor? Hold up your hand. Nice and high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I didn't say a hand.
Not,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Any opposed?
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you. I know, folks, that sometimes this is confusing when you're mixing revenue sources. I get confused on it myself, try not to, but. All right,
I guess my only thought on it was, are we getting the money that we give them to go on asphalt? Is that what it's being used for? That's what we give it for, and found out the next year, we had to keep giving it. We couldn't back up because of MOE. What? We give them intentional to start with, we give them $100,000 to do pavement. And next year, we found out we couldn't take it back and had to do it again. Huh? Yes. He's taking out of state money, ain't nothing we do about it. Watch out, boy, you be sneaking up on me.
Look at that.
what's that?
Look at that pitch.
I'll get my knife out. Is this different than one I got?
Yeah, throw it other one away.
I don't want to.
Oh, Lordy, that don't sound good right there.
Okay.
Dr. Sapp,
Yes, sir.
you wanna get us started, or we can switch it on this thing, however you want to do it?
Can I ask a question before we get started?
Sure.
How can the proposed taxes be less for 21 and 22 than they are in 20 and 21? Well, we got a whole lot more property than we had then.
Because you have to show 92%. Well, you can't show one of those figures.
This
to the
figure
left.
can't be right.
Yeah, the same way with the 101.
We budgeted at 92%. Yeah, more than likely they get more than 92%.
They always do.
Right.
But these two here didn't have to be projected wrong.
No. Because they're showing the total that was collected, not what you budgeted at 92%. They're showing the total of 100 or 100.3% or whatever it might be.
Okay.
Okay, and on the revenue side, the mayor's office pretty much determined the revenue side.
No. That was set by budget and finance.
Oh, budget.
I just transmitted it to you.
Okay, well, it came from the mayor.
No, if the mayor did that, the mayor violated state law, he did not do that.
Okay. I received it from the mayor, and I don't know how it was, developed, budget and finance, but anyway,
The figures that you received were what was last year. They were reflected what our maintenance staff or figures would be, so that you had a starting point.
but I just cleared up and we didn't estimate the revenue side, so we're perfectly fine with that. I mean,
The revenue side, the figures that you're seeing in revenue came from us to them.
yes. This budget that's before you is a status quo budget. I can't think of any new positions that we have added. Our BDP estimate has the exact same figures of personnel. I think our certified staff is like 87.71. That's what it was last year, that's what it is this year. So the only thing that we're just asking to receive our, what's on the revenue side. And then, there is some increase on revenue. We project that the local option sales tax will, continue to be a little bit better. And then we want to use that increase to help our non-certified personnel. We want to, in that budget, all of our non-certified is projected to have a 3% raise for this year. We're not asking for any new revenue to do that. The BDP revenue side, I apologize that we had to place some paper there, and we had to run the first budget out. We had to do the deadline of having that to the county commission by May 1. At that time, we had not received our April BDP estimate. So we were waiting on some, we're waiting on the BDP. We actually have it's called an April estimate, but we actually received it in May this year. So, but anyway, there's been a lot going on in the legislature. Also, there's a salary improvement line item of the salary component. That is 4%. That does not mean that our employees get a 4% raise. BP is funded at 87.71, and then we are exactly 10 certified positions more than that. Also, that we're waiting on the state Board of Education to set a new salary scale. Ms. Williams and I estimated that improvement to certified teachers would be at 3%. I was talking to Macon County's director yesterday at a pre-K graduation ceremony, and we were just talking about our grandkids were graduating, and he said that they figured it 2.5%. We always try to overestimate our expenditures and underestimate our revenue. I think our CTAS training over the years tell us that. So if there's any questions in there, we'll be glad to answer them. Or if some come up later, a phone call or email, we'll try to answer those for you. It's a status quo budget, no new positions, and a 3% raise for our non-certified. And then for our certified, whatever is allowed in the BP, and based off of the state salary scale that is yet to be determined by the state board. That's where we are. Ms. Williams, have I left out anything?
You said you're certified or get a raise from the state, but you don't know what it is.
Right. What they do is they have a salary component. You get it. Y'all, I've learned over the years, you guys get the estimates, the BP estimates as well. And on there, in the how to do sheet, there's a salary component that tells you the total on the first page down at the bottom, how many certified positions they are, and then they put a 4% increase to that salary component, and then the local board can distribute that the way they please, but they have to meet the minimum salary schedule. So each time that they raise the salary component, the state board develops a new minimum salary scale, which is the minimum that a teacher for years of service and degrees must make by law. So we're working on that new salary scale, and then we can make those certified line items like we can figure it to the penny. But right now, it's just an estimate at 3%.
Everything that I have read, it looks like you're gonna get more money from the state. I believe the governor's already made that statement, that he's gonna put more in there. And I don't know about the feds.
Most of that, I think what we're talking about is flow-through money. You know, it's to a salary and to benefits, but that's money is received, but then it goes out for payroll. So when you say you receive more money, you do, but you're also making a greater payroll. So it's a wash.
The 3% that you're talking about giving the uncertified, what's the bottom dollar on that?
The increase, Ms. Williams, what is that, about 47,000, something like that?
40-something thousand?
Yes, sir.
And you're asking taxpayers to pay that, right?
We're not asking for any tax increase whatsoever.
Okay, so you're gonna take care of that yourself?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, but Ms. Jones over there has been raising her hand for some time.
The positions that you didn't hire back last year because of COVID, you're bringing those positions back.
Yes, ma'am. And you will also see, if you look at the bottom line on page 16, and you'll see the estimated fund balance, then you can see the actual of 2019-20. That actual fund balance was $3,358,358. And the prior years to that, well, you don't have this on there, but in 17-18, it was 4.5 million. In 18-19, it was 3.9. And then 19-20, what you see is 3.3. But now you see the estimate going to 3.4. So for the first time, you see that level up. And that's due to exactly what you're saying, that there were some positions, you listened well, over the months. There's been some positions that we did not hire back, a librarian at the middle school, a bookkeeper at the elementary school. There was
What page are you on? I'm trying to find
I'm
the
on
rest
the
of my.
last page, page 16. There's a
Oh,
janitor.
here it is, yeah.
We didn't hire a bookkeeper, a janitor, a librarian, and Ms. Williams, we had some special ed services that we had some students that left the county that we we didn't have to provide, and sometimes that's very costly. So for the first time, you see us level that out during COVID. And here's another thing too, is that we got some federal money, ESSER money or COVID money, APR money. And one of the things that we did is we were able to buy a lot of custodial supplies, cleaning supplies, disinfectant that we normally would do with GP dollars, and we were able to do that with federal money, which you can see slowing the bleed down. That number that I just quoted you is an estimated number, it's not actualized, that happened in July. But obviously, that trend of losing about $500,000 to $600,000 per year is going to be, there's a tourniquet put on it because of some positions that we didn't hire and because we received some federal money. It's a good observation. Yes, Mr. Ford.
What'd you get, about 960,000 from the federal government?
It depends on which wave of money that you're talking about. You know, so I think the first one was what, 820? 200, yeah, 200 and something was the first wave. The 980 on the second wave, what they call ESSER 2. We've already budgeted that. We're working in that space right now. And then the new wave is ESSER 3, which is a little bit over $2 million.
So you've got nearly $3 million altogether from the federal government.
Yeah, a little
Over three?
A little over 3. Now, let me say this, and I make light of this, before you get too excited, that 20% of those funds has to go toward academics to address learning loss with students. That is the law. The next thing is that they have other guidance on that, and they have certain allowable uses. One of those uses is deferred maintenance. So one of the things, Billy, we're working on getting architectural plans and bid documents to replace those windows at the middle school. Now, since we've
Well, does any of that money show up in this budget?
it does, it kind of does, like what Ms. Jackson was talking about, that you see that fund balance, that drop in that fund balance slow down, and you can see where the federal funds, along with some other things that I mentioned, the federal funds have supplanted or taken the place of some of those general purpose school funds. And you can see that slow. See, remember, minus federal funds, minus pre-COVID, you know, with the BEP and the prison and the growth money, you know, that lecture, you know, we're losing about $500,000 or $600,000 per year. You can watch that fund balance trend over time, but for the first time in this year, you see that level off because of the reasons that I have described, a combination. So one of the things, we didn't hire, those positions were open, and we had just come out of this time last year with COVID, where we had people who weren't able to work, yet we met payroll. And then, as you know, as we go into the fall, when we're planning budget at this time last year, we didn't even know if school was going to open. And we didn't even know if it opened, how long it was going to remain open. So one of the last things that we wanted to do is fill positions that we might close school and have to continue to pay. Does that make sense? So what we try to do is put a tourniquet on that bleed a little bit, and that helped us, but we can't run 5-day in-person school next year on that kind of personnel.
This federal money that you have received, which is a great blessing, don't misunderstand me, but how much leeway have you got with that?
Not much. The noose is tightening by the day. Well, Senator Hale, the mayor, and Miss Amy was there, Miss Jack, yes, and Mr. Jewell. I mean, they had a presentation from the comptroller about the do's and don'ts of those funds. And they, basically, what the gist that I got from that was, we're watching you closely. And if you mess it up, you're gonna have to pay it back. And since you've already misused federal dollars, you get to pay it back with general purpose taxpayers' dollars. So it has really, the strings and requirements on those funds are getting tighter each time they pass out another one of those grants. So we have to be really careful to be sure that those funds have been approved prior to making any expenditure. But the comptroller had that, Mr. Jewell, on Tuesday. The commissioner had a PowerPoint presentation on yesterday, which was about 48 slides that she did in 30 minutes, and she never took a breath. So we're trying to analyze that guidance a little bit. We have not made our application to the state, but we have got our expenditures right now approved by the board. And Ms. Reed, we thought the other day, even though after that presentation from the comptroller and from the commissioner, that our projected expenditures would still align. Yes. But you don't want to mess up federal funds.
It's gonna be a blessing, but it's not, you can't use it just for whatever you want to. I mean, that's.
I think the comptroller did it best
I
on
mean,
Tuesday. We want to make the greatest amount of funds for the greatest amount of people. Right. You know, so we want to strategically use our funds toward students, toward our community, to make the greatest impact.
And we are in a position that several things that we were hoping to be able to do, needing to be able to do, is going to enable us to be able to do, where we might not have been able to otherwise. So the bottom line on this, as far as your budget request, the figures from the county and the 141 fund are the same. The penny value that they're getting is going to increase, so they're going to increase slightly because of the penny value, but the percentage is going to stay the same. And we appreciate that being the case. And hopefully, as these funds come in, some that flow from the feds to the state doesn't put quite as many strings on them, but when they're coming straight from the feds, until we get them, they said plan on getting them, but don't count them, if that makes sense.
Basically,
Am I right in saying that?
Yes,
Did they
sir.
not say that?
You're on the spot. Yes, sir.
basically, what are you allowed to use that basically $3 million for? Is it all gotta be in the classroom or what?
1 hour program on that, I guess we could go through that 1 hour program.
I just want to know in general what you got to do with it.
A minimum 20% has to be used to address learning loss for students. Another allowance is deferred maintenance. So anything that's maintenance, especially when it's related to COVID. For example, if the windows, Mr. Gully, we wrote that up like the windows that we have don't open. And if they do open, they fall out and hit the ground. So therefore, they cannot be opened. So we will replace them with windows that can be opened and with increased ventilation, which would help decrease the spread of COVID. Those things. So anytime that you can tie, that you're increasing space, you're using things to reduce the possible spread of COVID, or
Replace jobs.
yes, or any, like, for example, we're looking at adding a technology person with those federal funds, because we have Chromebooks for every student. So the maintenance of those devices go up. So and another big allowance is that when it's tied into preventing or preparing for closures. So, for example, if our school closes because of a quarantine that happened to us twice this year, and our students have to go to remote learning, then buying those computers for those students, hire maintenance to take care of those, the routers, the switches, the cabling in our schools. One of the things that we have done and we will continue to do is use those funds to upgrade our technology backbone. So when you go in our schools, you come in and you need a laptop, you open it up, you hit the button, and, your internet comes up. It's not like there's a commercial with the guy with the ears, AT&T says, you're not a bad guy, you just got bad internet service. Have you ever seen that commercial yet? We do a webinar. But the idea is that we want to make our internet in our schools, that pipeline, fast and free and accessible. And when we build that backbone, that'll be there for a long time, many years after the COVID challenges are over.
I can read through a few of the notes that I took in that meeting, just to give you some idea. You can expand office space. We can provide more space in the name of future expansion. You can have premium pay for essential workers. In general, what it can be used for, not specifically schools. Education spending, 20% has to go to learning loss, like he's already said. 80% can go to AP, career, curriculum, mental health teacher requirements that are tied to COVID. Things you can't use it for that are not allowed cannot be used to reimburse any rainy day funds or to raise your fund balance. It can't be used for interest or principal or fees on any notes or loans or obligations that you already have. You cannot spike your pension funds with it. The requirements, you have to have internal controls. It has to be accounted for completely separately. We've already talked about that a little bit. They have to be meeting reports, quarterly performance reports on it. It is subject to audit, like he's already said. One-time money, one-time expense. It can't be used for any recurring expenses. And the thing we've already said, the greatest good for the greatest number. Use it to stabilize the community. Use it to stabilize the school system. Think strategically and think about where the most need is so that you use it in the most need. Another thing that they talked about is that we could use it, look at a possible joint venture, a joint venture where we use maybe part of the school funds with part of the county funds, or even Trouser County and Sumner County going together to use some of these funds in a joint venture, say something like industrial development or something like that. So that's basically, there are other things that the county funds could be used for, but that's pretty much pertaining to schools, I think, where they have to be. Yes, sir.
Well, if they say something like it could be used for any expenses incurred before launch.
Right. You can't pay yourself back for something that you've already done. It has to be for something going in. Yes.
Some of that money won't be used to buy the phone for the students.
Yes,
All of it,
yes,
I think.
yes,
And,
a lot.
and do you have Wi-Fi in all classes?
Yes, sir.
Everyone?
Except the only issue is like in the early grades, kindergarten, first and second, we didn't do one-to-one devices for them. So we didn't really build that backbone up in those wings because they did not have one-to-one devices. We are giving them touch pads for next year. Everybody, so one of the expenditures for the new wave of money is to build that backbone in those three wings, that kindergarten, first and second, and bring it up to where we are in the rest of the school.
When next year starts, every student will have
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
kindergarten.
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought I understood.
And let me say this, the goal is, and my technology people here, but I think the touch pads for the Mr. Billy, I think Ms. Cochran said they had already come in the other day, did she say that?
I don't think you said that's correct.
Is that right? Yeah, so they're already in, and we're gonna actually, during summer learning camp, we're gonna give those children those touchpads and let them start working with them this summer. We're excited about that.
You mentioned switches a minute ago, just an idea of cost. I know it sounds like a lot of money, $3 million. You know, 600,000 is 20% going towards learning loans, that's $600,000. When you go to talking about the technology side that we're talking about, any ideas there that you can share with us on just the cost of some of
Ms.
those
Williams, you
switches?
might, I think we've got budgeted an S or two, somewhere between 300,000 and 400,000, is that right?
That's what I was getting at.
Now,
We're not talking
one of
cheap
the
stuff.
Yeah, and I mean,
It can eat up a lot of money real quick.
right.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We do have a
Second.
motion to approve. Ms.
I'll
Ford.
second.
And a second from Mr. Ford. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, raise your hand. Ms. Ford. I believe that's done.
Mr. Chairman, let me also,
Please.
besides, thank you very much. One of the things that the board and I hope that we will soon be able to get together, be able to have a meal with each of our students, and for you to see the wonderful work that's been going on. So, hopefully we can get together and we can see some of those good things in the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any further business tonight? Mayor, do you have anything additional? Did we miss anything? Did we miss anything? Okay, do we have any public comment? Seeing none, Mr. Walsh? Make a motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn. We stand adjourned until next Monday night. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate all your hard work and attention.
Thanks, sir.